the cushion that you're sitting on. And simply relaxing into that place. Perhaps relaxing into that place of inner observance, inner alertness, inner presence. Coming into this larger sense of our own being. And again, just feeling the breath in, feeling the breath out. And whenever whatever feels sticky or gripping seems to no longer be there, no longer feels compelling, allowing the awareness again to come into the body, allowing the awareness to expand into the space around you, allowing the awareness to find any other senses like sounds or smell. Maybe allowing the awareness to find that sense of aliveness within. Just resting in this open heart, this open place of softness, this place of full support. Slowly starting to come back into this current shared time and space with each other. Taking a deep breath in. Maybe you can bring our hands to our heart center, just feeling our palms meet. And again, carrying this question with us. What is it we need today? How is it I can ask for support? And what might it feel like to receive support? Slowly, you can start to open your eyes and look into this wonderful screen, maybe finding some other eyes looking right back at you. Slight turning up of a smile, this feeling, a sense of connectedness and here-ness with all of us here. So wonderful to meditate with you all. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you, Teresa. I definitely feel a sense of here-ness with you. That's so nice. And it's just really perfect the way you really set up what we're going to be talking about together, which is really uncanny how you're able to do that. Let me introduce, therefore, the featured guest for today. And if you want to also share your gratitude with Teresa on the chat, just to share how you're feeling, because that was so wonderful, it'd be great. So some of the themes that you just brought up around being here and being able to sit with what's going on inside yourself. I think we really have the best person to really talk about being okay with where you're at and whatever's coming up. Because Megan Devine, she's an advocate for really a revolution in how we discuss loss personally, professionally, and in a wider community. But her best-selling book, It's Okay That You're Not Okay, Meeting Grief and Loss in a Culture That Doesn't Understand, is really about how do we sit with these things and accept ourselves and accept each other for all those things that we're feeling. And so we're just so grateful to have her here today. Her latest project, Speaking Grief, is out in 2020 from PBS. And today we have her with us. So without further ado, Megan's going to share some wisdom with us.
Hey, friends. It's crazy times, right? I mean, I love how you set me up there, Brad, with like the things that I normally talk about are a revolution in how we talk about what hurts, right? How hard it is to be here sometimes. And I feel like everybody's talking about grief now. We've been having a discussion, some of us who work in this space professionally, like we've been trying to get folks to talk about these difficult things for years. And this is not how we wanted grief and end of life issues to come to the table, but here we are, right? We're here in this moment where suddenly everybody not only wants to talk about what hurts, but we need to. We don't have those sort of daily distractions from the challenges of being human. We can't lean on each other in real life the way that we normally do during any kind of hard times. And I think, you know, a really important thing here is like to acknowledge how strange and how hard this time is for a lot of different reasons, how much loss we're all facing individually and collectively, how hard it is to absorb stories of loss and suffering. My guess is that most of us here together today are paying attention, right? You're watching the suffering of the world, and that adds to your own suffering, feeling that helplessness and that frustration and that, honestly, outrage. All of those things, and it's hard for everybody, right? Everybody's emotional bandwidth is pretty much frayed, and I think that's really where we want to go today. Dara and I were talking about how do we want to use this time, and I think talking about those two sides of the equation here, this increased need for connection for our people, for leaning on each other, because that is how we survive hard times. And at the very same time, that capacity to give support, that capacity to really listen to each other is maybe at an all-time low, right? I know for me, I've honestly had to turn off is too hard of a word, but turn off some of my friends who don't need much right now, because I can't listen to like conversations about the awesome fair trade shoes you found. Like I can't have those discussions. So I need to make decisions about my bandwidth. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how we talk about supporting each other. One of the big things that I talk about a lot is acknowledging the truth of the experience, acknowledging what's in the room. I like to have conversations with people around how they have conversations. So some of you might be familiar with the concept of a process conversation. I won't see the chat, but Brad and Dara will, if you're like, I know what a process conversation is, or you're like, I have no idea what that is. But a process conversation is a conversation about how we're talking to each other, right? So I want to give you some examples. I don't want to ramble for too long because I want you to be able to use some of your time to connect with each other and talk about this. But I'm going to back up and I'm going to give you an example. So I have a very, very dear friend who's not only like a personal friend of mine, she's also one of my business allies and mentors. She is always able to take the gook of ideas in my head and pull out the beautiful parts and say, make this for the people, make this. This is going to be really beautiful. So during this whole stir up, I need her. However, she has a 13-year-old son that she is currently homeschooling with all of the beauty that a 13-year-old boy brings into the equation. She, just before the pandemic hit, moved her 90-something-year-old mom from the East Coast into her home because she had dementia that was progressing really quickly. And she wanted to keep her out of a nursing care facility if she could. So mom's now living in her basement in a suite that they just built. And 2 out of the 4 members of her family have asthma. So she's really concerned about anybody getting sick. And she's a doctor. That's a lot. So even though I need my friend, there is no way in hell I am going to go to her with my emotional needs right now. I'm not going to call her and say like, I need a business thing. That would be weird, right? I want to bring in the concept of right timing, which is from the Buddhist tradition, the Eightfold Path, and I'm going to tweak it a little bit because I think it's useful here. Right timing in this situation is like, which one of your friends does not have the capacity to be there for you right now? Can you notice it and can you respect it? As much as I need my friend right now, she needs me more, and I need to be willing to be in that receptive state for her rather than ask her to be there for me, right? So right timing in this situation, in this specific aspect, is knowing, maybe it's more like right place for this one. Which person can I go to when I have something I need to have this process conversation about how we care for each other, right? there is a lot of loss for people right now. I don't think you'll find anybody in your friend or your professional circle who has their tanks completely full and can be completely available for you at any time. I don't think that's happening, right? From the everyday loss of routine and the challenges that that brings up to losses of loss of job, loss of income, loss of healthcare, concern about friends or family members, and actual death or illness and dying that's happening. Like everybody is wrestling with something. There is like a continuum of loss going on. And it's not a hierarchy. It's not that one loss is harder than another. But I think when we're looking at where are we going to go for support? Where am I going to look to when I need some support? We're looking at what is my person dealing with? How much do they have on their plate and how much more can I ask of them? Right? Again, nobody's going to have a full tank, but I want us to get in that habit of looking before we ask, right? How do we respect each other by looking at what we see as a weight on our people? Does that make sense? So let's say that you've looked at a friend and you're like, okay, they're not struggling with 19,000 things. Like we're both kind of having a hard time. I would really like to lean on that person and let them know that they can lean on me, right? This is where I like those process conversations, sort of going back to how do we talk about this? So a process conversation is talking about how we talk about stuff, which is very therapist speak. I understand. But it's a different way of doing this. So you never just want to jump into somebody and start going bleh on them because maybe they're in the middle of something, maybe they're working, maybe they just had their own meltdown and they can't be there for you even if they want to be. I like having a conversation around like sending a text and saying, I'm having a really hard time right now. Do you have a minute? That is a very small thing to do, but it sets both people up for success, right? Because if I get a text and somebody says, I'm having a really hard time right now, can I call you? And I'm in the middle of an interview, I can come back and say, give me 20 minutes and I'll call you. Is that okay? Right? Again, these seem like really overly simplistic things, but especially when we need each other, being able to talk about, yes, right now, no, not right now, how about later, I can't do this right now. All of those things sort of let us stay connected even when we don't have the bandwidth or the mojo to actually show up. This is so weird not like talking about this stuff without hearing voices back, because normally I'd be like, does that make sense? And I can hear from you, but all I can hear is me. So
Woohoo!
that's all right. Okay, there we go. See, we get a woohoo. At least I know that's happening. So all of this is sort of a setup to talk about an emotional timeshare. Emotional timeshare is like, do those still even happen anymore? With like, you get a phishing email with like, buy into this timeshare condo in Hawaii or something. But I don't know if that still happens. If it does, I don't see them. But timeshare, emotional timeshare with your friends. So as I said, everybody is struggling with something. If you can set up in advance with your people a system so that you can do those check-ins. Hey, today is my morning where I'm having a complete meltdown. How are you over there? Can we have a conversation about this? Setting up those sort of relational timeshare parameters before things go even more sideways, that's great friend care, right? Like that's a great way to care for yourself and to care for others. So choosing a few friends, don't choose somebody who's a jerk. I've actually had this conversation before with somebody. We've like gone through this whole set up the relational timeshare, emotional timeshare thing with people. And they're like, yeah, but I did that. And that person always talks over me all the time anyway. Like, don't choose that person, friends. Think about friends who are kind of there for you on a regular basis, or they do their best to show up. And then you want to have a conversation, something along the lines of, you send a text, because who answers the phone anymore? Not me. You send a text and you say, hey, I've noticed that all of us are pretty stressed out right now, and I really want to be there for you on your tough days, and I know you want to be there for me. Can we set up sort of a code or a timeshare so that each one of us gets to feel heard when we need it, right? Use your own language. You don't want to sound like me, or maybe you do. I don't know. Um, maybe it's like Tuesday mornings are the times that I get to vent to my friend Samantha. And Wednesday afternoons are the times that I know she's going to call me and just bleh, whatever she needs to bleh at me, right? It seems really wooden, I think sometimes, like I'm going to schedule a time for my freak out. No, but what you're doing is you're setting up containers for connection. And I really, really like that, especially when everybody is sort of melting down and there are drains on your time and your attention everywhere. Setting up specific containers for connection is a way to get your needs met. Both sets of needs, right? Your need to be heard and companioned in whatever is stressing you out, and your need to show up for others. I think that both of those needs are in all of us and they're both really valid, right? So having a conversation with somebody who you feel like probably has the skill set to show up, having a conversation about how we care for each other, right? Like I notice that sometimes you need me at 7 o'clock and that is right when the time when the kids or the dog is having a meltdown. Can we have it at a different time, right? And let's switch off. Let's make sure that we're getting our needs met to support and to be supported. I think those are all really cool things to do. I do want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about how we support each other because it's sort of my thing. So the way that we often think to support somebody is to cheer them up. Yeah. That's like our cultural conditioning. It's our pop psychology conditioning. Somebody is having a hard time and we tell them to look on the bright side, or, hey, at least it's sunny outside today. You can take a walk, or you can always get another job, or I'm sure your parents will be fine. All of these things that we do because we think our job is to cheer somebody up. And unfortunately, cheering people up when they're struggling doesn't usually work. If somebody comes to you and they say that they're having a hard time and you cheer them up, they don't usually feel better. They just know that they shouldn't tell you that they're having a hard time. It's a really unintended side effect of cheering somebody up is you actually silence people. So one thing I want you to practice as you kind of move out into your day, you could even try it in a little mini form, even though there are different questions we're going to send you off with. Notice what your habitual response is when you hear somebody say, ouch. When you hear somebody say, I'm really struggling. When you hear somebody say, I didn't sleep very well last night. Notice what your habitual impulse is. What do you normally jump in to say? My guess is that it's going to be somewhere along the lines of cheer up or fix it or make it better. So I want you to play with that. And I want you to challenge yourself. If you find that the thing that jumps to your lips is something that tries to take somebody's pain away from them, first, notice that that's your impulse. And second, make a different choice. That impulse to be there for somebody is a beautiful human impulse. It shows that you care. However, if you really want to be supportive to somebody, the best response is acknowledgement and listening. Let them be in the pain that they're in instead of trying to take it away from them. So that's going to be an interesting work in progress. Normally, when I talk about this stuff, we're not in a crazy pandemic where everything has gone sideways. And I tell people, you know, the time to change the way that you respond to pain is now, on small little everyday things with low consequences, so that in the unlikely event that the whole world goes sideways, these skills aren't new to you. Well, the whole world has gone sideways. And it just means that we need to practice new ways of listening to each other's pain and responding to each other's pain during an actual emergency instead of in more chill times, right? So emotional timeshare, right timing, and right person. Think about who you're asking to enter into a mutual support relationship with and when you're asking. Set your parameters ahead of time and watch your habits. How do you show up for each other? How do you care for each other, right? One of the questions we're going to send you off with is talk about a time when you really felt supported and what did that look like and what did you ask for? And very often when we support each other, we say, tell me what you need. And I think that can be tricky, right? The person who is having a hard time might not have the knowledge of what they need. They might not have the emotional bandwidth to figure it out. right? So spending some time thinking about how do you like to be cared for, and what things can you offer to somebody else to care for them? That's also some great pre-work that you can do before you enter into your emotional timeshare, right? So with my friend Samantha, I'm going to wrap up with the same person I opened talking about. When all of this started happening, I sent her a text message and I said, look, I'm not going to lean on you right now, and I need you to know that I'm fine. I have my own supports. I am here for you. I don't know what you need. Here are 3 things that I can offer. Do any of these sound good to you? So I think I came up with like, I can send you ridiculous memes from the internet to make you laugh. I can be available for these hours and you can just call me and everything that's going on. Or I can send you the occasional, you got this, I love you, I believe in you text message. And about an hour later, she came back with, I choose number 3, thank you, I love you. Right? So I used my knowledge of my friend, and I used my knowledge of me. Here are the things that I could probably actually do for you, and made a clear offer.